Hi, Kylie here from the Art House Factory. Just want to do a quick video for you on how you pick the right builder for you. Everybody's heard stories of, horrible stories of interactions with builders, and it leaves a bit of a bad taste in people's mouths. And there's a lot of great builders out there, and it's just a matter of finding the right one for you and your project. So I'm just going to run through a number of steps that I recommend to people to do in the process of picking their builder. Step number one is get referrals. Ask as many people as you can that you trust what builder they've used, what builder they've heard about. Do they have a family member who's used a builder? And word of mouth is a fabulous way to find the right builder for you, because as a general rule, you tend to pick builders who are local. Not always, some people will certainly fly the right builders in for a project, but quite often your circle of associates and friends and work colleagues and family will have heard some good stories about a builder. So get onto those first. When you want to talk to a builder, one of the first things you want to ask, and this is the second point, about referrals. Ask if they've got past clients that you can have a chat to, and ideally past clients whose work you can go and see. And particularly if you can go and see it without the builder, even better. And, ask them about their experience, about timeframes, about communication, about all of that sort of stuff. And this is even before this is even before you get to the point of getting your plans out to them. You want to find someone that you can work with, you can communicate with, and whose work you trust. If you don't have any contacts in that realm, ask your designer. Then have a look online, social media, have a look at their work and those sorts of things. The next thing you want to do is get your plans to them. So generally you need your plans. You need to know what you're doing before you talk to a builder. If you're going for a build design company, and I've got other information out there that explains the difference between a builder, a designer, a build design company and stuff like that. So that's something that I'll try and get a link up on my site soon about that. You want to have your plans ready. So if it's a build design company, with them you'll go and select your plans first, and then you'll go further into the builder things. If you've got your plans and you're selecting a builder, have your plans and show them to them. And you want to sit down and you want to go through those plans step by step. If you can, have your designer with you. If your designer is going to project manage, then your designer will help select the builder and may even have builders they choose to work with. If your designer is not project managing, then this stage is absolutely vital, that you sit down and you go through the plans step by step. Vital that you understand the plans step by step. If you're going to rely 100% on your designer and the designer is not going to talk to the builder and you don't know what's in your plans, you're leaving yourself open to misinterpretation, to things being built that weren't on the plans because you didn't know what was there. So either have your builder come with you, or make sure you understand through intense conversations with your designer exactly what's been specified, what's on the plans. The next step is to check that your builder has the right insurances, and check what associations they're members of, because that always helps in that if your builder has the right insurances, there's a number of builders out there that don't necessarily have the right insurances. And so while they're great at what they do, they're more handyman than builders, because once you get above a certain level on a cost of build, you must have certain insurances in place. So you need to ask your builders about that, and you need to cite it. Get them to show you. You want to see their certificates, you want to see their current. Okay, once you've done all of that, then get your plans out. You want at least 3 quotes, and ideally you want all of the people quoting to quote in the same format. So by that I mean some builders will come back and just give you a lump sum figure. It's going to cost this much. Others will come back with breakdown. You want the breakdown. You don't want someone who's just going to come back with a verbal, it's going to cost this much. You want it written, you want a breakdown. Now, some builders will break it down by product or by area in terms of this will be the roof cost, or this will be the cost of the product for the roof. Other builders I've seen will break it down room by room. Try and get the builders to all do it the same way. And that way, when you've got all your quotes back, it's apples for apples. Otherwise, you're trying to compare apples with, soccer balls, because you don't know what's different. And each builder will have different ways of quoting. They'll have different costs because their manufacturers or their outlets for certain materials may charge differently to the outlet of the other builder, and they may work with different companies and those sorts of things. So you want those quotes to line up as much as possible in the same format. The next step, once you've got those quotes back, go through it. Sit your plans down, go through it, and just check that what you're being quoted is what was on your plans. Now, it's very common in the industry, and I hate to say this, but it's true because I've had it happen on my own projects, that builders will tend to quote on what they always do, not necessarily what's on your plans. So that's really important. I had some clients recently where they've never done a renovation, they've never done anything like that. I've specified, we'll take the insulation, for example. I've specified a certain level of insulation which is suited their needs for the building. They got their quote. It was basically a handwritten out quote on an A4 piece of paper, just with a few numbers and stuff on it. So as far as I'm concerned, not a quote that I would go for, but they were happy to go with that. And I asked them what insulation was quoted for, because it was just said insulation. They said, oh, we've spoken to him and he's quoted on this product. I said, do you realise that that's not the product that's on your plans? And that product is about half the level of insulation to what you've asked for. And they sort of said, well, no, he just said he's quoted the insulation. And I said, well, you need to ask him to write it down and then ask him to quote for what's on the plans. Now, this happens, unfortunately, it happens a lot. The builders, they might be great builders, but they will quote on what they believe should go in it, not what is on the plans. And it's even happened on my own build on Art House 1. That was a 72 square metre house, little compact, beautiful artwork, and 32 pages of plans I had on that drawing. There was not a wall I didn't have an elevation of. I had notes. I had 32 pages is a big set of plans for such a tiny build. And I was on site every day. I didn't project manage. I chose to leave the headache to the builder. He knew I was going to be on site every day and that I knew what I was looking at. Now, the builder did a good job. I'm not bagging the builder. I'm just saying stuff gets missed. So a number of times I walked onto site and I'd look at something and go, what's that? And it happened a number of times to the point where I'd walk in, and if I didn't have a big grin on my face once I'd had a look around, the site manager can't come up and go, what have we missed? And it was little things like an entertainment unit that was a custom entertainment unit that was meant to be all white, had come back and parts of it had been painted black, despite the fact it was clearly on the plans all white. I had a big artwork on the wall, which was an integrated part of the wall, 3-metre artwork on this wall. The builder knew what I wanted, the site manager knew what I wanted, the chippies knew what I wanted. When I came in terms of the painting on the wall was to have a big TV mounted in it with concealed PowerPoints and all that sort of stuff. The day it was done, I couldn't be there when the electrician was there. None of the other guys who knew what I wanted were there, and this guy's drilled big holes like this straight through the artwork and not where the telly's going to go. So there were big cables were going to come down. And so it's things like that you need to sit down during quote stage. During quote stage, and I know this seems pedantic, you need to make sure that builder understands every single part of those plans, that he will go through it and he'll talk to you about it. So when you get the quote back, go through that again. Go through that again with him. If it comes in on an email, ring him and sit down and go through every single item. Then also face to face. Go through every single item. If anything's different, why? Why is it different? And then get stuff requoted on. If stuff hasn't been quoted on the right way in your plans, get it requoted on. Do this with every builder. Now, the next stage is to, once you're satisfied with that, check how during all of this sort of stuff, you're going to get a really good bead on how do you communicate with this builder. How does he communicate with you or her? There are some great female builders. How do they communicate with you if you're asking them all these questions? And there's never a dumb question. Remember that, there is never a dumb question when it comes to building, particularly when it's your house and your money. Ask any question you want. How did the communication go? Did they get testy about things? Were they not clear with communication? Did they conceal things? You know, one of the biggest problems on building sites that I've come across is that the communication is not clear. The communication needs to be really clear to get you a great build. So the next thing, even if, you know, you might love the quote, might have done all of those stages properly, but if you can't communicate freely with this person, it's going to make the build difficult. Now, you will get builders who may not talk much. You know, people like that around there. I'm an introvert myself. You know, sometimes you don't talk much. But the right builder who knows his stuff will happily talk about what he knows. So he's going to be happy to talk about that quote. Okay, so you've selected your builder. Check the contracts. The builder, make sure he sits down and explains the contracts to you. They're long, they're boring, they've got jargon in them. Get it explained to you. And if you built like 10 years ago and you're going to build again, get it explained again. The contracts have changed. So get the builder to sit down and explain stage by stage your contract. Don't just sign something assuming it's all going to be okay, because part of that contract and part of the quote is going to be things he's made an allowance for. And that's the right term for it. It's an allowance. And it's things like for your oven. It's things for your light fitting. If your designer hasn't specified exact light fittings and has just, you know, left that selection up to you, which happens quite often, then what's the allowance for those? Some builders might allow $50 for them, some will allow $200 for them. You want to know what your allowances are, and that's where the contract comes in, because if you don't know what your allowances are and they say, right, we need you to select your bathtub, and you go and select one that's worth $2,000, but their allowance was $700, you've got an extra. So instantly that contract has an extra on it, and it comes from those allowances. It comes from anything that they've just given a ballpark figure to. Before you sign the contract, check those allowances. Check that that's enough for you. If you haven't paid an interior designer or a designer to select your lights, to select your bench tops, to select your taps and things like that, you're going to select them. Your builder's put in an allowance for that. So you need to check what they are, because you might have in mind that you want, you know, a recycled glass bench top and you want, you know, great taps and all that sort of stuff. If your builder doesn't know that, you're going to end up with extras during the build that you possibly haven't budgeted on. Get that checked before you sign that contract. Get the insurance cited for your contract. All of this stuff's really important. The other thing that comes in then, so once your builder starts a project, and this is if he's project managing, or if you're working with your designer to allow them to project manage. If your builder is project managing, you need to be on site to make sure things are done properly, or you need someone to represent your interests a little bit. And that may be you ask the designer just to drop in a couple of times. It may be that you're going to drop in a few times. It may be that you request your builder to report back to you every week what's done. And I've had clients that have done that every single week. On the Friday, they had to sit down and have a meeting with the builder to go over everything and discuss the timelines, to discuss all of that sort of stuff. You want the building you paid your designer to design. Make sure your builder gives it to you. And there's another thing just to watch out for, and that is the builder is not always, quite often, not always on site to monitor their trades. And there's a lot of very good trades out there that they're good at what they do. There's also a lot of, to be honest, there's dodgy trades out there. There's really dodgy trades out there too. So you just need to be aware that if you spot something on your build that doesn't feel right, it doesn't match the plans, you stop and ask. And even if your builder's not there, you stop and ask whatever tradesman's there. And you let them know on site that there's a problem. Then you get back to your builder. And, you know, this is how little things go wrong. There's so many people going over the plans. And if you've got an involved set of plans, information gets missed. Or I've had an experience myself recently where it was misinterpreted. It turned out that the painter on site couldn't read. Now, that doesn't mean he's a bad painter. I mean, this particular one wasn't great, but he couldn't read. And so every time the painter showed up, I got a phone call going, can you come to site? And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'd get there and the builder would go, tell me about your colours. And I'd go, it's on the plan. He'd go, no, I want you to tell me about your colours. And I go, it's on the plan. Here are the pages. Here's all the pages. They've been here the whole time. It's on the plan. You don't need me here. And he wouldn't admit that he couldn't read. And he ended up, I had to get the paint pots and sit them next to the walls that needed to be certain colours, because we had a number of colours going on in this space. This sort of stuff happens. This happens, guys. I mean, on my own projects with stuff I've designed, and I've been the one, you know, ducking in on the build on behalf of the client. Entire walls have been, oh, I don't know how to do this on video, have been mirror reversed. And so a window that should have been here was over here. An entire wall. Stuff happens on site. Like, I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm just telling you there's a lot going on site. You need to be on your toes. You need to be on your toes, or you need someone to keep an eye on that for you. And you need great communication with your builder. A great builder, if a mistake happens, a great builder will be on it immediately. If you pick something up, he'll just go, yep, absolutely, it'll be taken care of. If the builder gets a bit antsy, blames you. I've had, again, on my own build art house one, I had an electrician I ended up banning from site because all of these things were done wrong. Again, multiple pages of plans, electrical layouts, light fittings. It was still done wrong. And when I came in and said, right, this is going to change, he started talking extras because he needed to fix what was going on, but he wasn't prepared to fix it at his own cost. That builder got kicked off site. This is your site. You know, I tell a lie. I tell a lie. Technically it's your builder's site. If he's project managing, it's his site. You cannot just walk on anytime you want. You own the land, you're paying for the build. You can't walk on anytime you like. Your builder needs to know when you're going to be there. When I say this is your site, I mean this is your end result. If something's not right, speak up about it. Absolutely speak up about it. You know, seek the information. And I'll be honest with you, try and do it in a non-combative way, because it's emotional. I mean, all this money, it's your job, it's your home, it's emotional. And if things go wrong, you get emotional about it. Try and step back, just ask for the facts. What are the facts? What's going on here? Why isn't this right? Are you going to fix it? Keep it like that. And then if things don't go well, there are other channels, and I won't go into that. So selecting the right builder for you, it is an involved process. There's a lot of money involved. So take the time. Take the time. Get the advice, get the referrals. If you get the right builder for your project, it's going to be a real experience that is going to be a real benefit. You're going to have a beautiful project, and things are, you know, it's well worth the time that it's going to take. You know, I've built a few times, I've renovated, I've done everything wrong. A post I had on YouTube the other day about, you know, how the first renovation I ever did, I wasn't in the industry, I screwed it up big time, you know. Screwed it up big time. So I know what it's like to fumble around and not know what you're doing, because I've done it. And I've done a few projects since then, and each one's a learning curve. So approach it in terms of that. Be excited, ask questions, talk to your builders. This video will be available on YouTube. It's under Kylie Mitchell The Art House Factory. Whole lot of other educational videos over there as well. So jump over there, see what's there, because there's a lot to learn to make this whole journey of building in your house or renovating really exciting, to give you the knowledge that you need. So jump over there, YouTube, Kylie Mitchell The Art House Factory, and we'll keep putting information up for you. Bye.